We've all been there. You're at a festival, you find an amazing yarn, and you completely blank on what you want to make with it. I love going to fiber fairs and yarn festivals, but they definitely can be overwhelming. So today I'm going to share a couple of tips and tricks on how to stay organized and calm during your next fiber festival. Hello and welcome to Knit Cheek. My name is Natalie and I am the cheek behind Knit Cheek, and today we are talking all about not getting overwhelmed at your next fiber fair. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalie and I talk about knitting on the internet, and today we are talking all about fiber fairs and how to not get overwhelmed, how to figure out how much yarn to buy, and what to make with it. So you may have heard, because I've been talking about it a lot, that this year is my first year that I will be attending Rhinebeck, and I'm very, very excited. But I've never been to Rhinebeck, so I'm a little bit scared and a little overwhelmed, and I wanted to share some of the things that I'm doing to prevent that from happening. I've been to a couple of yarn fairs, fiber fairs before. I've been to the Salida Yarn Fair in Colorado. I have been to the SoCal Fiber Fest both years that it's been running. And I have also been to, is that it? No, I think there was one down in San Diego County I went to, but I don't remember the name. I know what it's like. Even the SoCal Fiber Fair, which I think is relatively small compared to Rhinebeck, it can be overwhelming when you're shopping for yarn. You find a certain skein, you love it, but you don't know what you're gonna make with it and you don't know how much of it to buy. And that's why I thought I would share my approach on how to make it less overwhelming this year. I think there are two types of yarn shoppers. There's the type who I have seen on YouTube will make a legit Excel spreadsheet of all the things that they want to buy at the fiber fair. So they're going into the festival with a shopping list. They know what they want, they know what they're looking for, and they have a budget. This knitter is making detailed lists and hunting down very specific yarns for specific patterns. The second category is the knitters who don't have a list and are just going to experience the fiber fair. And if they find something, they find something. They find the yarn and then decide on the pattern. They're letting the yarn speak for itself and the yarn spark inspiration. I'm definitely in the latter group of I like to go to a fiber fair without a shopping list and be inspired by what I find there, but I feel like both of them can be overwhelming. So here's how I'm going to do it. Number one, I'm going to organize my Ravelry. I've been tidying up my queue, wish list, and bundles, and I've been inspired by Rhinebeck to create bundle-specific shopping lists for yarn weights. That way, if I'm at the fair and I find a yarn, it's a DK weight yarn, I can easily open that bundle and see 5 to 10 patterns of examples of things that I can make with a DK weight yarn.
Let me show you how I made these bundles. So I just go into my favorites. Then I went over to bundles. I am going to add a bundle, and we're just going to call this one shopping list. And I put an asterisk on the front of all of these just so that it would show up at the top of my bundles. I also put numbers on them that kind of related to the yarn weight sample. Then we're going to create that bundle. For right now, we're just going to go back into favorites and bundles and look at it. So you can see I have shopping list 6 sample. We are going to add some items into this. So what you're going to do that is you're just going to go through your favorites. This is what I did for each of my bundles. I went through my favorites, and if there was something that I caught my eye that I wanted to maybe look for at Rhinebeck, I click on it, and then I would know what the weight was. And then I would favorite it and put it into that shopping list. So you can see I already put this one into shopping list for DK. But if you were putting it in the sample one, you would just click that one there. And that's how I made my bundles.
I am going to make a pattern shopping list for each weight. So I will have one for fingering, sport, DK, worsted, and Aran Weight yarn. I'm also planning on having like 5 to 10 patterns for each one. I would like to have a variety patterns, so not just sweaters. So if I find like a more expensive yarn that I would really like to make something with, I might have a vest or a beanie or a bandana or something small that I could make with that pricier yarn. The patterns that I'm going to choose for these bundles are going to be see patterns that I'm excited about and that I would love to knit, but aren't necessarily patterns that I already have yarn for or already have yarn in mind for. That's something that I would leave my wish list for or my queue. I like to keep patterns that I have yarn for in my queue, and then I like to keep patterns that I'm currently searching for yarn for in my wish list. So I treat that like a shopping list. So if you are one of the type 1 knitters who likes to go in with a shopping list, if you're not a fan of making an Excel sheet or a notes app, you could just use your wish list on Ravelry to do that. I find that when I am at a fiber fair, I use Ravelry a lot. I can sometimes search the yarn specifically to see what other people are making with it. And I also can search the patterns that I'm looking for. So I feel like using Ravelry as a one-stop shop to do this will help a lot. And when I'm on the go, I use the Ravet app to do this. If you're wondering if you could skip making the bundles for weight-specific yarns, you can. A lot of times what I've done in the past, if I find a yarn at a fiber fair and let's say that it's that DK weight yarn, I will just open my favorites and you can actually filter through your favorites to the advanced filters, and you go to weight and then you can scroll through that and go to DK, and then only the DK patterns in your favorites will show up. This can still be quite overwhelming, especially if you have hundreds of patterns in your favorites, and those favorites can go on for however many years you've been on Ravelry, and they're not necessarily in order of what you're most excited for at the moment. They're just a random array of everything that you've ever favorited. So if you're not somebody who wants to do all the work of making these bundles, that's definitely an option, but I think taking 30 minutes to an hour to make a couple of bundles of maybe just the yarn weights that you think that you'd be interested in buying and a couple of patterns for each yarn weight would make it a lot faster. I really like the idea of a really curated list of like 5 to 10 patterns that I know if I were to find yarn for anything on that list, I would be excited to knit it. If you're going into a fiber fair with your shopping list and more of specific patterns in mind, then I recommend using your wish list, or you can just make one bundle called a Rhinebeck Shopping List 2025 of all the patterns that you're shopping for yarn for. Another tip that I strongly recommend doing is using the yarn feature on Ravelry. So if you do find a yarn, you can look it up on Ravelry and see what other knitters have made. This can be a nice way to find examples and see how that yarn looks in exact patterns that you're looking for. I do this quite a bit, and I will also reverse engineer it where if I'm looking at a pattern that I want to knit, like the Lana vest for example, I wanted to knit it in the Osprey yarn by Quince & Co. I went into the Lana vest projects and actually looked up Osprey in the search engine and found someone who had made the Lana vest in Osprey yarn. It's actually Jackie from Jackie is Making. And then you know exactly what that pattern in that yarn is going to look like.
I have been told that the internet at Rhinebeck can be spotty. And so I wanted to create something that I could keep on my phone that I could access if I don't have reception. So I created this note in my notes app where I broke down my shopping list by the yarn weight, and I'm going to drop down on my lace weight, and you can see I have a template here that says pattern name, and then it has all sorts of other things that I may want to add for my shopping list. And I went ahead and filled one out. So I did the Sadie top, which is by Woozy by Celine. The 3 most important things that you want to note are the pattern name, the weight of the yarn, and the yardage for your size. So you can find that on most pages if you scroll down. I'm knitting the size small. If you scroll down, you can see yarn here, and it'll tell you approximately how many yards or meters you need. So I filled that out here. And so now if I don't have internet and I can't get out into Ravelry, I at least have the basics of what I need to shop for yarn at the fair. You can also add photos. So let's open up this photo into your notes app, and it shows up there. So now if I add, another one here and another one here, I could add more photos to these. And this is collapsible, so you don't see those photos in your overall list. So if I'm like looking around and I find a DK weight yarn, I could just drop down that and I would see only the photos for the patterns that I saved for that weight. These are collapsible notes, and that is in the Apple Notes app. As long as you're using one of the heading fonts, then you should be able to collapse it. It is a little bit finicky sometimes, but if you play with it, you should be able to get it to work. I also just added some lines in between my template for each patterns just to make it a little bit cleaner. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do, hopefully before I leave, is add some patterns to this list in case I can't get on the internet. I will leave a template for this note in my video description so you can copy and paste and get your own list started.
I am making a list of yarn quantities for myself. And the way that I'm doing that is I am taking past projects and I am noting down how much yarn it took me to make those projects. So, example, for my Eva cardigan by Petite Knit, I know that I use 6 skeins exactly of Pearl Soho Plain Air, and that is a DK weight yarn. So I will note that in my notes app, how much yarn it took me to make a DK weight cardigan. And so if I'm at a fiber fair and I find a DK weight yarn and I know that I want to make a cardigan, I know that I need 6 skeins. This can go for anything. So beanies, vests, anything that you've made, note it down so that you start to have a curated list for your size of how much yarn that it took to make that. This is great for when you're shopping quickly, or if you just cannot decide on what you want to make for that yarn, or maybe they only have 3 skeins of the yarn that you love. Now you can look on your list and see what can I make with that amount of yarn. A quick note on grist is that you do want to double check your yardage and grams to the pattern to make sure that it's close. You're not going for something that's kind of a complete different density. And also double check, because some yarn companies will label a yarn a DK, another yarn company may label it a sport. Like it's a spectrum of yarn weights, right? And we kind of give ourselves brackets of each one of those weights. And that leads into my next tip. I also would suggest bringing a yarn weight chart with you. Not all yarn companies will label their yarn a specific weight. They will just tell you the yardage and the grams. I assume that that'll be the case with a lot of farm yarns or like smaller dyers that will just tell you the yardage instead of saying sport or DK weight. Even when you are buying commercial yarns, they don't always use that system of sport weight, DK weight, worsted weight. They use 1, 2, 3, 4 when it comes to weights. So it can be really, really helpful to carry a yarn weight chart with you. This can be a digital version. You can snapshot a picture of it. For me, I think I'm going to keep one in my notes app so it's readily available. My last tip for not getting overwhelmed at your next fiber fair would to be research the fiber fair. And the way that I'm going to be doing that is I've actually been curating a playlist on YouTube of all of the different YouTubers who have gone to Rhinebeck and who have made vlogs or reviews or like their experiences. And so I'm planning on rewatching some of them and watching new ones this weekend to get me pumped for Rhinebeck. Another great resource to get ready for an upcoming fiber fair, if you can get a hold of an old pamphlet. I am lucky enough that my friend who I'm going to Rhinebeck with has gone for years, so I feel very taken care of when it comes to this festival this year. And she actually had this 2024 New York Sheep and Wool Festival pamphlet. And so I've been looking through this and it's really been opening up my eyes on what to expect. And so this has definitely been a really great resource. If you can't get your hands on a pamphlet, you can check out their websites, their Instagrams, any online source you can to prep yourself for that fiber fair so that you feel just a tiny bit less overwhelmed. Between YouTube, the fiber fair resources themselves, I feel pretty ready for this experience and I'm super excited about it instead of being completely overwhelmed. Even though I said I'm definitely that second version of knitter who goes to a fiber fair without a shopping list, I still may make a shopping list for Rhinebeck or a list of vendors that I am excited to visit. So not necessarily like I need to buy a specific yarn from them, but I want to squish and smell their yarns. So that is something I'm definitely planning on doing, is making a short vendor list, or maybe some items that I'm shopping for that aren't necessarily yarn related. I'm also interested in getting a couple of different tools to read gauge, and I would also love to come home with a ceramic mug from Rhinebeck. To wrap up this video, I just want to remind you that it's just a fiber fair and you're there to have fun. The way I'm looking at this as somebody who's going to Rhinebeck for the first year is I really want to go and I really want to enjoy the actual experience of being there. So I don't want to convolute that with a huge shopping list or a huge to-do list. I'm going to go, I'm going to enjoy myself, and if I love it, I can always go back. So I feel like I don't have to see everything. I know that's not the case for everybody. Like, you might not be able to go back to a fiber fair. It may be your only chance, but I still just don't think it's worth stressing over. Another thing that I feel like fiber fairs are great for is just being introduced to a new yarn. So maybe you don't walk away with that skein of yarn during that fiber fair, but maybe you give that vendor a follow on Instagram, maybe you subscribe to their email list, and now you have a new to you yarn that you've felt and that you know that you like, that you can purchase in the future. I can literally never remember to say what I'm wearing in these videos. Okay, I was just about to wrap up, but I wanted to mention that the bandana I'm wearing in this video is the Barbara shawl. This is the Barbara shawl by Gorgonial Fibers, and I knit this in Ilmani tweed, the silky tweed, I think it's called. This is a 3 skein project. The skeins were 50 grams, so this is a 150 gram bandana, which will help me if I'm at the fiber fair and I want to knit another bandana. I now know that I can get away with making one with 3 skeins, 3 50-gram skeins. This is actually yarn that I bought at the SoCal Fiber Fair, and I bought 3 skeins of this yarn, not knowing what I was going to make with it. And to be honest, I thought I was going to make a vest, and that is because it was sold in 50-gram skeins, and I didn't quite register that. I thought they were 100-gram skeins. So in my mind, I was buying 300 grams of yarn, and I thought I could knit a vest with it. And in reality, I bought 150 grams. So when I realized that later, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to knit a vest with that. I had to change tactics and knit a bandana. But maybe if I had known some of these tips and tricks, I wouldn't have made that mistake. I mean, it worked out, but maybe I would have bought more of this yarn if I wanted to make a vest out of it specifically. I hope this video made you feel a little less overwhelmed for your upcoming fiber fair. Let me know if you liked any of these tips and if you have any of your own in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.